I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I play it almost every day, and 9 times out of 10, I have a pretty good experience. It's fairly free-to-play friendly, and there could be more modes, but I enjoy the competitive ladder, and the duel events aren't bad too. But I want an actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Game with a narrative and characters, and some sort of post-game or replayability. Not that Master Duel doesn't have replay value, but you know what I mean. And in this video, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games and what made them so special to play. But before we get into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Duel Academy for the Game Boy Advance was the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game I had ever played. This is one of the few I actually played on a handheld console instead of an emulator, so that was a really nice experience, but I never got very far into the game, and for a few reasons. There isn't as much hand-holding or dialogue that sends you in the right direction, and generally playing against the CPU could be kind of tricky. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always been a game of variance, but it's especially present in older formats. The amount of times you'll be winning a duel in this game and your opponent top deck snatch steal is ridiculous. But anyway, the card pool is pretty small relative to the modern game, but the duels are still enjoyable, even if the starter decks given to you are a little frustrating to play. I remember the Fire starter deck, which was centered around Legendary Flame Lord, which became one of my favorite monsters. It gains spell counters and can blow up the field, but it isn't a very good card. But I had a lot of fun regardless. The thing that stuck out to me in this game was not the dueling, it was actually the exams. At the end of each month in the game, your character would take a written exam, which was just 10 questions about Yu-Gi-Oh! And usually they are straightforward, although a few would stump me. The second part of the exam was the time duel or duel puzzle, which I still can't complete to this day, embarrassingly. And finally, the duel examiner would challenge you to a duel. In most cases, you don't need to finish the duel. Just getting them down to a certain amount of life points is enough. If you scored well enough on your exam, you'd have the choice of moving to Raw Yellow or Obelisk Blue, and you could also stay in Cypher Red, but I believe moving up would unlock more characters. And this game does have story events, but maybe not the way you'd expect from a video game. But the end goal of this game was to obtain the title King of Games, which could be easily done by getting 200 wins, 10 wins against each character, and solving 60% of the written exam questions. But going back to the exams, I think that part of the game was significant for a few reasons. It breaks up the monotony of just talking to NPCs and dueling, which can be very draining in Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, an example being Legacy of the Duelist. The exams also gave you something to look forward to in-game, as climbing through the dorms is a bit of an achievement, and ultimately this made you feel like you were at Duel Academy, which should be the point of the game, and feeling immersed in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series that the game is based on is carried over in other games that we'll discuss later. But once you're crowned King of Games, you can duel Chancellor Shepard. In theory, dueling the Chancellor is really cool, but I feel like there could have been something more exciting. But the game had only come out a year into the airing of GX in Japan, so there would have been limitations on characters and storylines that could have been included, so it's not really the developer's fault. Moving on to the next game, I want to talk about the Tag Force series for the PSP. I'm always shocked when I go back and watch gameplay of these games because they look so good. The character models and summoning animations look sharp and clean, but these games are great beyond their visuals. Compared to Duel Academy, it expands a little bit on how you navigate the world. You're still going from place to place on the overworld map, but your character has a sprite and you can walk around and interact with NPCs and even pick up random cards on the floor. But of course, the major element of these games is the tag duels, hence the name Tag Force. You can pick a character to be your tag partner, and the more you duel with them, the further you can go into unlocking part of their story. They have hearts which you can fill up by winning duels and completing other tasks like getting them gifts. So there isn't an overarching story, but the individual stories do cover major parts of the anime. I specifically played the 5Ds editions, and one of the best parts about the game is being able to play some of the older, slower archetypes in an appropriate setting. I really got into old school Dragunity and Flame Bell by playing these games. But these games do get a little repetitive in between filling the hearts because you have to grind out duels, but I remember there is a decent variety of characters and decks to play against, so it wasn't that bad. There were 6 in total, with 3 for GX and 3 for 5Ds, but this did change with the final Tag Force game in 2015. The final Tag Force game was the special edition, which featured the Arc 5 characters, but it didn't feature an overworld, so it was just straight up dueling. Which kind of turns it into the Legacy of the Duelist, which is far from my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game. But I think these games are looked at with reverence generally, probably for the animations more than anything, but it's arguably the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Has ever looked. And the last game or series of games that I want to discuss are the 5Ds trilogy on the Nintendo DS. Stardust Accelerator, Reverse of Arcadia, and the main talking point over the Nexus. These are part of the World Championship series, but they're much better than their predecessors. In addition to being a simulator, you get to play out the story of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds as an original character that you can customize, although the customization suite is a bit lacking. But the game does feature an open or semi-open world experience, which is really nice, and a big upgrade on Tag Force. The graphics are pretty decent for a DS game, but beyond beyond that, it just feels like the developers put in some effort. And over the Nexus, you start off as a character in Crash Town, if you remember that episode from Season 3 with Callan, and you eventually build a team and win the World Racing Grand Prix and take down the 3 Emperors, and that's great, but there's so much more to explore. The open world element isn't the craziest, but it's still fun to have a character and navigate them through the world. Like Duel Academy, there were duel puzzles, and like Tag Force, there were tag duels, and summoning animations for special monsters that do still look alright, but the two distinguishing gameplay factors were the turbo duels and the races. They do introduce Speed World 2, the speed spell card type, and speed counters, which do have a significant effect on gameplay. It slows things down a bit and makes you think a little more on deck building. A speed spell that costs 4 speed counters and a trap that does the same thing but maybe slightly worse gives you a decision to make, and although it's not that different from the TCG, just having another format to play is nice. And one other detail I love about the duels in the story mode is that they mimic the 3v3 duels in the anime. One of your teammates, being Toru or Masaki, may start the duel, lose, and then you're placed in the duel with whatever the board state was when they lost, which is a nice touch. But switching gears to racing, you kind of have 2 options. In some turbo duels, to decide who goes first, you actually get to race your opponent. And I'd like to hear other people's experiences with this, but I found it almost impossible to beat the CPU in these races, at least in the end and post game. It's only halfway around the court, but they're incredibly fast off the starting line. There's also another difficult racing event where you have to dodge ally salvo for 60 seconds, but it's not nearly as hard as the CPU races. But the other opportunity to use your Duel Runner is at the Duel Runner shop, where you can select a course and see how fast you can complete them. These are a lot of fun, and as I mentioned, you have a ton of customization options for your Duel Runner, which is nice because it's something that could have definitely skipped over. But it was so important that it was included because it makes you feel like you're a part of Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Card games on motorcycles is what makes 5Ds 5Ds, and they nailed that in this game. But this was effectively the last of the World Championship series, and in turn this type of Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game, with the exception of Zexal Duel Carnival for the 3DS. I always assumed these games didn't sell well enough to warrant them making more, but even if this is true, I think there was another factor, and that's probably Konami's complacency. But I think that is starting to change. Master Duel isn't a video game in the traditional sense, but an accessible official simulator was missing for years, and even in the TCG with the introduction of overframes and the stamp cards, it feels like we're moving in a positive direction, and hopefully that applies to the video games as well. And lastly, I really do encourage you to play these games, especially the 5Ds trilogy. They're quite pricey on the secondary market, so if you still have your cartridges and DS from your childhood, that's great, although there are probably other ways to access them as well. But that's the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. What would you want to see in a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game? Leave it in the comments below, and if you'd like to see me play any of these games on the channel, comment that as well. But other than that, hopefully I'll see you in the next video.